Hi guys, welcome back to From PSD to HTML5. My name is Dan Wellman, and in this lesson we're going to look at a useful little plugin that will automatically generate some CSS for us based on the styling in the PSD. In the last lesson we went through the PSD manually picking out the styling that we needed, which is the old school way of doing things, and as we saw it can be quite time consuming. All we managed to style in the last lesson was the header and the footer. So in this part we're going to look at using the plugin to do this instead, which can save us some time. So the plugin that we're going to install is called CSS3 PS. So we'll just go and download that now. And it's a free plugin, which is pretty awesome. So let's download it now. So the plugin supports a couple of different versions of Photoshop. As you can see, there's a couple of different types of plugin, one for CS5 and 6, and one for earlier versions of Photoshop, CS3 and 4. And it is supported on the Mac and Windows as well. So that's pretty awesome. So let's download the one for the latest version of Photoshop. And it says here that we need to close Photoshop. So let's just do that now. I'll close that. We don't want to save any changes. And then the file that we downloaded, if we double click on that, this will open up Adobe's Extension Manager, and we just need to accept that. And the plugin's been installed for us. Here we are. So it's listed in the extensions panel here. So any plugins in CS6 are installed using the Extension Manager like this. It's a very quick and easy process. So now if we reopen Photoshop, just wait for that to load. And as you can see, it looks exactly as it did before. We need to actually enable it from within Photoshop. So to do this, we just need to go into the window menu and then into extensions. And if we select CSS3 PS, that will open it up here for us. And it's kind of right in the middle of our working area now. So if we want to rearrange our workspace, we can just, we'll stick that in there, and it's quite big. So let's just resize that a bit. Okay, that's a bit better. So that's now installed and available for us to use. So let's open up one of our PSDs. I'll grab the homepage one. So to get the plugin to generate some CSS for us, all we need to do is select a layer in the layers panel here. So let's select this text here, and now with the layer selected, we just hit the button for the plugin, and that takes us off to a web page here, which is loading now. And we have to wait a few seconds. So we'll just wait for the styles to be processed and generated, and once that happens, they'll be displayed on the page. Great. Okay, so it's given us a preview of the element that was selected over on the left here, and we can see all of the styling that makes that up, or some of the styling anyway. So it's given us the font family, the font size, the font style, and the color. So if we go back to the page now, let's look at this. Let's inspect this, and we can see that, yeah, the font size is wrong. So what we can do, we can go back to the web page, and we could just copy this whole block of CSS, and we'll drop that into our theme style sheet. And if we look at the markup for it, it's in the main section and it's a H1, so we'll do you say section H1. Obviously we don't need the brackets because we copied those as well. We can add a fallback. And when we go back to the page now, yeah, okay, so that's looking pretty much exactly as it should do. So let's just go back to Photoshop quickly. So the plugin can be quite useful. Obviously, it's generated a lot of the CSS for us. It's a little bit disappointing that it hasn't generated the line height for us. If we use the text selection tool and just open up the character panel again, we can see that it's got a line height set. So, really that should have been carried across as well. But the plugin doesn't yet work with line height. It is constantly maintained and updated though, so hopefully they'll add line height support at some point in the future. But if we go back to our style sheet, then we can just add that ourselves manually. And we need to do this because Bootstrap assigns a line height and it's too much. So we need to set the correct line height here. So one of the limitations of the plugin as well, it doesn't work very well with layers that are based purely on images. So if we select the logo or hit the button again, it's generating and it's processing the layer and it's generating the CSS for us. So we just wait for a few seconds while it does that. And then you'll see the level of support that we get for images. We get very little support, as you can see. All we get is the dimensions. So it's still quite useful. We did need to get the dimensions for the logo earlier on, so the plugin still could have helped us. It would be nice if it added a background image style, but I suppose it's not really possible because how would it know what the image was called? The plugin does work very well with multiple layers though. So if we go back, we can select a few layers this time. So let's grab we'll go with featured, portfolio, and information. We'll grab those layer sets. And if we hit the button again now, we still only need to wait 20 seconds. So it doesn't matter how many styles it's got to generate. We still just wait the same length of time. So we're still waiting now. This is one of the downsides of the plugin, obviously. We have to wait 20 seconds each time. And now we've got a great big list of a lot of the CSS that we'll need. So that's pretty awesome. And as you can see, one of the biggest selling points of this free plugin is that it works very well with CSS3. So this line here, if we look at the PSD, it looks like a border, but if we select it, we can see that it's not a border, it's actually a drop shadow. And the plugin has correctly generated the CSS3 to make that shadow. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. So we can now work through this list of styles and add the ones that we need to our theme style sheet. We're still going to need to do some stuff manually, and we're still going to need to make some changes to some of the underlying markup as well. So let's go back to the page. So the social icons, obviously, they're not text in the PSD, they're icons, but we can add the inline class just to get those kind of looking roughly right. And like I say, we're going to need to make some changes to some of the markup here. So we'll actually remove span 4 from the list itself, and we'll just add a container that has that class instead. And you'll see why this is necessary later on. So one thing is all of the images have this big orange border. So we can add a general rule for images, and we know already that the border is 10 pixels thick because we measured it earlier on. So let's just add a border bottom now to all of the images, and we'll grab the orange from here. Okay, so all of our images now have that nice orange border at the bottom. The text here is already good. If we look in the PSD, we can see that it's actually got a link inside it, which we know from the orange. So let's just add a link now. It doesn't really matter where. And we can see that it correctly picks up the orange there. And now the list of links here, if we look at the PSD, we can see that this should actually float on the right, and the list item markers as well should be orange. So what we're going to need to do now is to just do exactly the same as we did with the links. Here we just need to take this span 4 class off of the list and just add a container div for that. I think I already copied the class as well, yeah. Cool. That's what I meant to do. And we can just add the pull right class here, just to float that to the right. And let's take a look. Okay, so that's looking a bit better now. We just need the orange on the list items, and we should have the orange here somewhere. Yeah, so we can copy the orange over there. Obviously, we can get it from our style sheet anyway, like I did just a minute ago. But if we hadn't already have done that, if we had the plugin installed right at the start, and we wouldn't have had to use the picker there. We could have just got it from here. And we just need to add that. So we can say, yeah, section li, and the color wants to be that. Okay, so now this is looking pretty much as it should. If we look at the PSD once again, we can see that this kind of collection of elements has this big grey border here at the bottom. This one has the grey border at the top. And let's just take a look at the other PSD as well, just because there's one of those in here as well. Let's just zoom in a bit. We can see that this one has the border at the top as well. So obviously, if we were building an entire site, then this kind of markup structure might be featured on other pages as well. And it should have a border top. And then we can add a custom rule for the first one, which has the border at the bottom instead. So let's do that now quickly. So we can say that articles have this grey top border. And let's just see if there's anything in here that will help us. Doesn't look like it's identified any of those grey lines for us, which is a shame, but there's only so much the plugin can do, I suppose. So let's go back to the PSD. How big is it? Let's measure it to check. Okay, so it's only 5 pixels. And let's just pick out the grey. Okay, so it's all the E's. So now we need to differentiate the very first one, which is here. It comes just after the big hero image. So let's just add a class name to this called intro. And then back in our style sheet, we can say that any articles that have the intro class, they won't have a border top. But they will have a border bottom. So let's copy this one. And we'll just say it's a border bottom instead. And if we go back to the PSD now, there's our lovely border. Okay, so as you can see, the page is really starting to take shape now. It's starting to match the PSD very closely now. So, okay, let's go back to the PSD now. We can zoom out slightly. And this actually has quite a lot of padding at the bottom, it looks like. So yeah, about 45 pixels. If we go back to the page now, we can see that the paragraph itself has some margin, but it's not enough. If we look down here, we can see it's 12.5 for some reason. There's probably a very good reason why it's 12.5. I don't know what that reason is. So let's change that. So we can say that paragraphs inside an article have a margin bottom of 0. And we can actually pad out the bottom of the article itself. So obviously, if there were 3 or 4 paragraphs in the article, we wouldn't want a massive margin bottom on all of them. So we'll just add it to the article itself. And we'll go with 45. Okay, I think line height is probably coming into play as well. So let's just check that. Okay, so the line height of the paragraph and stuff is pushing that down. So I mean, this plugin that I'm using in Chrome is super useful. So if you don't have it already, then make sure you grab a copy of it yourself. Awesome. So it should actually be 30. So let's just update this. Sweet. So there's still a couple of bits left to do. We're starting to get there though. It's really starting to take shape. So let's just have another quick look. So there's a bit of spacing at the bottom here. So let's just zoom in so that we can see what's going on. Okay, 36. Doesn't look like 36 pixels to me. I'm going to measure it so that I know for sure. And we just want to add a little bit of margin bottom. .27 pixels to be exact. So we can add that to the section H1 because for consistency, obviously the spacing between them is going to be largely the same. Awesome. So let's just remove some of the styling from the portfolio grid. And because this is in a nested section, then we can just do something really simple, like section. And we're going to want to override some of this extra padding and stuff, and that's on the thumbnail class. We can see the padding should be 0. If we just look through some of the styles here, we can see that there's a border radius that needs to come off, a border, and a box shadow. So we can set the border to none as well. The border radius, we'll just set that to 0. And box shadow as well. If we set that to none, that will override it. And we should add the WebKit ones as well. And obviously we'd need to add the Moz ones and the O ones and the MS ones as well, but I'll just add the WebKit ones for now. So they're starting to look a bit better now. We need to fix the styling of the text here. What's happening is it's picking up the orange color that we added to the list items. So that was quite a general style. So let's just override that now. So we'll just copy the selector over again, and they're H2s. And if we go back to our web page of generated CSS, yeah, here's the block that we're working on now. So let's copy those styles, and we'll add them in there. Go with the fullback font again. And if we look at the line height in here, let's just see if there is a line height. Okay, so it does have a line height. Let's see if this has a line height as well. It does. And it was 42 pixels for there. And let's grab some more styles from here. Probably don't need the font family, but we will need the font size and the color. So now let's take a look. That's looking a bit better. I think this probably has some margin on it as well. So let's get rid of that margin. And the text is actually center aligned. So it's really starting to come together now. We just need to fix this kind of weird layout thing that's going on. So let's see what we can do. So to fix the layout issues, I'm not entirely sure, but it must be a bug in Bootstrap. We just need to reduce the size of the span 4s in the thumbnails. I'm not very happy about having to do this, if I'm honest. I think Bootstrap probably should work as intended out of the box, but so they're currently set to 300 pixels in width, so let's just set them to 299, and now we should find that everything kind of lines up as it should do, if we spell it correctly. Sweet. Okay, so yeah, the homepage is really starting to take shape now. We need to add the wave pattern to this central content area. There's a couple of spacing things we still need to do as well. So there's there's quite a big bit of spacing at the bottom here. So let's just add that now. So the container for the main content area is a section. So to target just the outer section, then we can just do body section like that. And we'll just give it a background, and we'll point it to our wave file in the imgs folder. And that was to repeat. And now we can also use the same selector to add that nice big bit of padding at the bottom. So let's just see how much that is. So it wants to be about 135. So we just need to reduce that back down. So if we set it about there, that should be right. Okay, so that's the home page almost done now. So in this part we looked at a handy little plugin for Photoshop that can generate some of the CSS for any selected layers in our PSD. In this case it wasn't super helpful because we're already getting a lot of styling for Bootstrap, but I'm sure you can see the potential for time and effort saving that the plugin brings. In the next lesson we'll cut out those social icons and look at a few tips for creating sprite sheets efficiently in a way that makes them flexible when working with modern requirements such as CSS preprocessors and retina quality sprites. Thanks for watching.